Welcome to the episode of Love and Reality Podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valero. On today's episode, we are jumping right back into the Traitors Season 2. Last week, we had the 3-episode debut of Season 2, and we had quite a few people kicked off the show, whether it was by murder via the Traitors or voted off by fellow castmates as they suspected them of being the Traitors. Marcus Jordan, Maxim, Johnny Bimenez, and Peppermint were all eliminated in just those first 3 episodes. Who will the Traitors eliminate next? Will the cast finally figure out who the Traitors are amongst them? That's what we're going to try to figure out here on episode 4. Before we dive in, thank you guys so much for the continued support of the Love and Reality Podcast. If you're listening on podcast platforms, could you do me a favor and hop on over to your iTunes, Spotify, whatever you're listening to, give that 5-star review. I would greatly appreciate it. If you're right here on the YouTube channel, hit that like, comment, maybe the subscribe, drop a comment as well. I'd greatly appreciate that as well. When the show begins, host Alan Cummings comes in and revealed that because of what went down with Maxim, Deontay Wilder chose to leave the show. And as we saw at the end of the episode, he really feel like, we're playing a game, but sometimes it feels like, you can take a punch in the ring, but not within the game. I think his personality will be missed. And I really feel like Dan is going to miss him because he's the one that had Dan's back whenever the crew was sitting together amongst that group. But at the end of episode 3, the Traitors were told that they would have to murder someone in plain sight. So Pavarti, Dan, and Phaedra have to use some real detective work to pull off a murder without anyone knowing it. Pavarti works quickly on grabbing the poison, finding her target, and getting her to drink it. Now, the thing about this was, what I felt fascinated about is you're out in the middle of everywhere. You're kind of making drinks, I guess you could say. And she just kind of squeezes over to her and was like, "Hey, here you go. Here's a little bit of a drink." You know what I mean? But it worked, obviously, as she got her to take the sip. She gave her the quote unquote poison, and she walked in to inform them that she got Ekin-Su, and they were shocked by the reaction. Now, I will say this. You might have picked somebody that you wanted to, like, quote unquote murder in this scenario, but for me, what really stood out was you have to just make a play here. This isn't a strategic thing. It's just trying to get somebody to drink the quote unquote poison and then spin around and try not to get it pinned back on you. Now, of course, with so much going on in the household, these cast of characters really didn't pay attention to what went down right here. However, now everybody starts to come in, blah, 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 blah. What's shocking here is one by one, everybody enters the little dinner table, and everybody was sitting there, and then here comes Ekin-Su. Just walked in the door. Just walked in the door. He comes in to let everybody know that someone was poisoned in plain sight, that they will be dead by the end of the night on the upcoming competition. I love the way they did this because a few people were near Pavarti when she gave Ekin-Su the drink, right? So, but on the spin of this, the way Ekin-Su was talking to Pavarti, she was like, "Hey, I'm going to figure out who this is, and I'm going to take down the traitor," as she's talking to her, which is absolutely brilliant. The one thing, again, I love what they did here because normally you thought the person was murdered, but now they're back and they get to figure out in this moment as they put pieces together in the challenge, and we'll talk about that in a second, how they were going to break that down. Now, Dan now sits down and is working with Pavarti to talk about how they might need to throw Phaedra under the bus when the time comes because he doesn't think he can make it to the end with her. I love this here because you have to be strategic. You have to, I don't know if we're seeing everything with Dan, right? I feel like the editing here has not made Dan out to be a very good game player Totally. He was called out of the table, and now he's got to make moves because if he doesn't, he can see himself on the outside looking in, especially with one of his allies, Deontay Wilder, being gone from the household. Now, the challenge is this. This week challenge involves the team figuring out who the traitors poisoned. If they figure out who was poisoned, they win $25,000 added to the pot. Throughout the game, they'll answer a series of questions that will eliminate certain people, leading to them get to vote for one person. The group dwindled down to MJ, Ekin-Su, and Parvati, with each remaining person having to leave a black rose in the person's casket. So you had all three of these members laying in a casket, and you had to take a black rose and drop it. So everybody that was already eliminated from the competition, one by one, 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 by, had to drop it in their casket. Now, everyone picked MJ. Then, of course, we had the big reveal. Alan revealed that Ekin-Su was the one who was murdered. And of course, they didn't add the $25,000 to the pot. There were some funny moments throughout this that Johnny Bananas had saved CT because he had joked it was the first time that Johnny Bananas had ever saved him from everyone. Everyone had a choice between three of them, and they're all wrong. Like so, and I love that Pavarti and not Pavarti, Dan and Phaedra had to kind of follow suit to not go off the beaten path. It's insane to me that they added $0 to the pot here, but Sandra is trying to make sure she is good with the housewives because Larsa and her team are the strongest of the group. Pavarti is starting to spin that Larsa is one of the traitors, and Bergie agrees with her. She's trying to spin this on anyone but herself. Again, you got to play the game because one, we're playing for money, but two, as a trader, you're having to twice play the game, which your strategy is a little bit different whenever you're playing as a trader. And she seemed like, I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but Varti always has this look on her face. Like I don't want to say it's like resting bitch face, but it's like she always has this like either something stinks, resting bitch face, or just this mean mug on her face 247. It just, I will say this though, her being so vocal against the housewives could bite her in the ass later, especially with Phaedra, who is one of those housewives. So, that being said, we are sitting at the table and it is time to gather everybody, and we get a giant pissing contest with Larsa being called out because she said cheers to Marcus being eliminated. Now everyone is insinuating that what better way to prove that you're not a traitor by eliminating your boyfriend. That, I will say, smart spin there because the possibility is there. You are going to play the game however you can, especially as a trader, to really hone in on these aspects of this game. However, it's spun to CT now because Larsa is calling him the head of the snake, and it's time to chop off the head of the snake. Now we get a pissing contest with Kevin being brought into this. Pavarti chimes in herself, bringing up housewives saying they act, and they fight back saying they don't. This is hilarious. So Pavarti goes, "Hey guys, there's no better actors here than the housewives, and if you looks to kill here, Pavarti's dead. Like Pavarti is dead." Because they just look at her like they don't act. Well, first off, like I've seen like a episode of The Housewives. There's some good acting in there. It might be real life at the same time, but it is what it is. However, pissing contest here, we're fighting amongst everybody. Again, one of my favorite aspects of the show is this table because anything goes. Like there's anything goes in these scenarios that really are highlighted by these battles of he said, she said, because obviously we're trying to figure out who the traitors are and get rid of the traitors, but there's egos, there's egos within these pissing contests and grudges that are being activated throughout this entire table scene that really just bring out the best in some good reality TV show. The vote begins with Dan saying Larsa, Tamra, Dan saying Larsa. Tamara votes for Kevin. CT votes for Larsa. He said, "You come at me, I come at you." Pretty point blank there. Sherry voted for John. Doesn't think he's a traitor, but needed to vote for someone. Hilarious. Bergie votes for Larsa, saying he trusts CT more. Larsa looks at him and says, "You'll get murdered next week." Like that was like really aggressive, and I loved it. MJ votes for Kevin. Phaedra voted for Kevin. Sandra voted for Larsa. John votes for Kevin. Janelle votes for Larsa. Larsa voted for CT. Pavarti votes for Larsa. It's 5 votes for Larsa, 4 for Kevin, 1 for John, 1 for MJ, 1 for CT. Pavarti voting for Larsa, and then, of course, Kevin voting for Larsa, removing her from the game. Marcus Jordan, Larsa Pimpin, it's nice having you on the show, but you are both now been eliminated. Of course, we know watching the show, she is not one of the traitors. In typical Larsa fashion, she goes out with a bang, and she revealed that she was not one of the traitors, which sends the shockwaves through the entire cast. Ellen informs everyone that the group who will rejoice as traitors will eliminate someone else tonight. Phaedra is pissed off that Pavarti put the target on the housewife's back. Tricelle and CT haven't gotten along in the past, but they're working together now to possibly figure out who the traitors are. I really like this dynamic here because, again, if you're not a traitor, you're trying to figure out who it is. So once you balance that situation out, you got to find other like-minded individuals that are willing to hunt down these traitors, right? So I really love that. And I said this again, Pavarti just always looks like she has this evil look on her face. The traitors meet and Phaedra snaps at her. She took her head off in this moment in one of the most like holy shit moments in reality TV in recent time. She said it wasn't cool throwing her team under the bus. She said nobody likes her, and she said she will not tolerate her game playing. And like with Dan, with this what the fuck look on his face, and she said, both of you, like just insinuating both of them need to watch their backs, and the episode ended. This was an incredible episode. One of the things that makes the Traitors so good is you have so many people, but the 2 eliminations per episode really drives home the competition aspect of the show. You got an hour, and typically you only have on most of these shows, you're only having one person be eliminated, or maybe you don't have somebody eliminated. I remember watching that oh man, the House of Villains or whatever it was on E, and it was like 4 episodes had went by and like nobody was eliminated. It's like you have to have stakes for us to invest in, especially now with the traitors. You have those individuals sneaking behind the back and killing these people. I love this show. It's Peacock has announced that it's one of the highest rated shows that to debut on their show. It's up tenfold over last season. It's really cool. And the best thing about it is you really like, I don't know a lot of these individuals on this show. I've seen some familiar faces. I've seen some of what they've done in the past, but this particular cast, I knew some of them, but you see them strategically playing a game. So that gives you an idea of what we're playing with here with this cast. So for me, I am really wrapped up and really ramped up about this show, and I can't wait for episode 5. Folks, so much content, so much reality TV. We've got the Trusted Game of Greed, which is on Netflix. I recapped every one of those. We got Love is Blind right around the corner. I've got some cast episodes dropping. My first initial thoughts on the cast from Love is Blind season 6. So much content, so much to go through. But the Traitors, if you're not watching, let this be a little memo to you that you should be watching. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk next week.